Clark webinar series, An Entrepreneur's Journey. Super excited to have all of you tuning in. And here we have an exciting webinar planned for all of you today, where you're going to hear from 3 amazing local entrepreneurs and their story and some tips and tricks and advice for all of you. So glad to have you all here. Before we begin, I'm just going to run through a couple of housekeeping items before we begin. And today, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom webinar format here to ask any questions that you have. Ultimately, today really is an opportunity for all of you to learn from and ask questions to 3 awesome, talented entrepreneurs who have gone through a lot of different experiences on their journey. So please ask every question that you have, and we'll make sure to get to those following our panel discussion. If you want to comment on something or send a direct message, feel free to use the chat feature on Zoom. As I mentioned, we will answer the questions more so formally after the panelist discussion. And finally, this webinar will be recorded and it will be uploaded to our online resource section of our website, as previous webinars are, which I'll show you in a second. So if you do have to leave early, no problem at all. Or if you want to rewatch it, or if you want to share it with someone that you think might find value in the webinar, you absolutely can do so. Would like to quickly introduce our team at the Stu Clark Center: Deborah Jonason-Young, our director; Lindsay Friesen, our program coordinator; and I am Joshua Zaprazan, the venture coach at the Stu Clark Center. This is our awesome team. If you have any questions whatsoever about what the Stu Clark Center does or how we can help you on your entrepreneurial journey, don't ever hesitate to reach out to any one of us. You can find us online at umanitoba.ca/entrepreneur, and/or follow us on Instagram at Stu Clark Center for all the latest news, updates, contests, and info on how we can help you, and different resources as well for your entrepreneurial journey. As I mentioned, I'm the venture coach at the university at the Stu Clark Center. The Venture Coach program is an absolutely free resource for any student, no matter what faculty you're in, no matter what stage of your business journey you're in. It's a free resource where you can book a meeting with me and you can ask questions, all the way from if you just want to explore what entrepreneurship is and how to be an entrepreneur or how to come up with an idea, all the way to if you have an existing business idea and would love some advice or connection to other community resources. Feel free to reach out. At the end of the day, we're here to help and support however we can with your entrepreneurial journey. So take advantage, book your free meeting. You can book as many as you want, whenever you want, and you can do so online at umanitoba.ca/entrepreneur through our Startup Tree platform, which you all used to RSVP for this webinar. Speaking of webinars, I mentioned this webinar is recorded. To find those recordings online, you can go to our website, scroll down to where it says find an upcoming webinar. You'll see a list of the upcoming webinars, and at the bottom of the page, you will see the video links to YouTube of all of these webinars. So again, feel free to rewatch, feel free to share any webinar, as well as see what we do have upcoming in terms of webinars. With that being said, there's a couple notable webinars that I would love to just highlight that's still in our 2021 winter series. Following this webinar on April 7th, we partnered with the Kerry Vicker Business Law Clinic on April 7th, where the law students are going to talk about legal fundamentals for startups. April 12th, family business case study with David Asper. April 21st, building your personal brand, and ending the series on May 5th with building a social enterprise. So feel free, if any of those interest you, feel free to RSVP through Startup Tree, just like you did for today's. Okay, as I mentioned, today is all about an entrepreneur's journey. And the way that today is going to work, I'm going to shortly introduce 3 amazing local entrepreneurs on our panel today. You're going to hear from them, their story, their journey, and some advice from them to you. And then we're going to have an open discussion with all of you in attendance. If you have any questions, again, please drop them into the Q&A feature at any point, and we'll monitor that and ask the questions at the end. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, invite our panelists onto the video screen here, and we will get underway. Awesome. So today we are super lucky and fortunate to have with us 3 amazing local entrepreneurs, as I mentioned. Cheryl Zealand from Cranked Energy Bars, who just last week celebrated their 7th birthday of Cranked, which started back in your kitchen 7 years ago with your kids, I believe. So happy birthday to Cranked and welcome here. Great to have you. Secondly, Grant White from Endeavor Network of Companies, which includes Endeavor Wealth Management, who I believe you celebrated, Grant, your Endeavor's 2nd birthday earlier this month too, which is exciting. And last but not least on the panel is Chris Schmidt from Pluto Ventures, if we're keeping in line of the birthday theme, Chris, I'm not entirely sure when Pluto's birthday was, but I'm going to guess 2 to 3 years after the acquisition of your previous tech company, GeoFilter Studios. So thank you so much to the three of you for being with us today. You all have some amazing stories and built some amazing companies. So it's nice to see we've got tech, food, finance backgrounds here as well. So a great combination. But we're going to maybe dive into it right away and just get started. If each of you wanted to give a little bit more of an introduction on yourselves and your company, that would be awesome. So maybe Cheryl, we'll start with you. Welcome.
Sure. Hey guys, so I'm Cheryl. I'm the founder of Cranked Energy Bars. We're a local company made in Manitoba. I started it 7 years ago out of the kitchen of my home after my little twins were born. I had 3 kids, 4 and under, and just tinkering around the kitchen trying to make an energy bar for my family, and kind of with a little bit of research noticed that there was nothing on the market fresh energy bar related that actually tasted really good. And that was, I think, the key to what grew the business, was making an energy bar that's known for, say, a chalky, bad aftertaste and actually not that much, like, not filling, and making it like an experience where you want to eat it every single day and have it part of your life. And 72 iterations later, and a lot of 3 years to get something edible. So it's not easy to make a food product that's going to actually sell. We're now in over 100 Manitoba retailers and doing a expansion across Canada in 2021. So it's exciting.
Awesome. Very exciting. Well, thanks again so much for being with us, Cheryl. Grant, over to you.
Yeah, so Endeavor Network is like the umbrella company, but what we do is we focus on creating exceptional customer or client experiences and going into traditional industries and trying to basically go in either through acquisition or startup and go into industries where we think that we can just create a better experience for people and around whatever the solutions are that are currently available. So that's the main focus of Endeavor Network. But our primary business to date is still Endeavor Wealth Management, which is, as the name suggests, focuses on the wealth management industry, where we work with typically like incorporated professionals and small business owners and quarterbacking the entire financial services needs of them, whether it's from an investment perspective, but planning, tax, estate, all of those different areas basically. And so again, it was just an industry that I identified a long time ago that was an area where we felt that we could just that people deserve better than what the industry was providing, and became a major focus. And now with Endeavor Network, we're focusing on other industries that we think we can make a difference in as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Grant. Last but not least, Chris.
Hi there, my name is Chris Schmidt. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Pluto Ventures, which is a venture-backed artificial intelligence company. I've built a few companies before Pluto. Just to quickly touch on 2 of them. One I started when I was 10 years old. It's now become the largest tree banding service in the city, protecting Winnipeg's trees against Dutch elm disease. And the company before Pluto was called GeoFilter Studio, which was the first and became the largest producer of Snapchat filters in the world. We started in 2016. We were Canada's fastest growing company in 2017. We grew to 85 employees in 12 months. We had like 24,000% growth, which is kind of a hard number to actually understand. And basically, if you've ever seen or used any filters on Snapchat, that came from Winnipeg. And that company was then acquired about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I've now moved on full-time to Pluto. I do have a bachelor's of science degree from U of M. When I was at the U of M, I was actually only in the Asper building probably 4 times my life. So I've been back many more times since graduating, and excited to answer any questions today.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Chris. And again, thank you to the 3 of you for joining us today. You all have super cool stories and building super cool companies. But let's get started. Today is really all about your journey and an entrepreneur's journey. So I want to know where it all got started for each of you. What were those early days of your entrepreneurial journey? What did they look like? Maybe Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I have photos and videos of me in like my diapers pushing around a plastic lawnmower behind my dad at our yard. So I grew up just kind of working along with my brothers. I have 2 older brothers, and I kind of wanted to follow in their footsteps. And the early days, you don't, when you're 10 or 11 or 12, you have no idea what business is or entrepreneurship is. You're kind of just doing what you enjoy. And what I enjoy doing is what is called entrepreneurship. It's this kind of glorified, sexified industry because of people like Evan Spiegel and all these and Elon Musk. But really, at the end of the day, it is a grind. And as you hear with Cheryl, 72 iterations just to get the right formula. It's a grind, and it just, you kind of, back then you're doing what you enjoy, and then that's turned into my full-time job. I'm fortunate I can do what I enjoy full-time. But yeah, the early days are like, there's nothing glamorous or sexy when you're 12, cutting lawns or banding trees. It's sort of, you're doing what you enjoy, and you're doing that between playing sports and hanging out with your friends.
That's awesome. Cheryl, 7 years ago, it started for you in your kitchen. What were those early days like at iteration number one?
Oh God. Well, it was never supposed to be a business. So I'm a CPA by trade. I articled at KPMG. I was a manager at KPMG Calgary, had my first child and went on mat leave, and decided then I wasn't kind of suited for the corporate life. I wanted to be home more. And so actually I kind of became an entrepreneur in the terms of I was contracting myself out to the School of Business, facilitating Core 1 and some of the other courses. I was writing questions, I was marking at exam centers, all that, so that I could stay home with the kids and kind of consulting that way. So it was a natural, and I was always kind of involved in the fitness industry. So eating energy bars was part of my growing up. It just, it presented an opportunity when I realized that the energy bars were crap out there. And the space on the shelf is so competitive. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to kind of be in a different place. So the grind was real. It's not like it is now, where you could launch a company on Instagram and get some influencers eating it and sharing and people tagging. I mean, I was standing at events with like 2 people, or in the rain, and I had people spitting out my bar in front of me, and I like everything you can think of to kind of tug at that confidence as an entrepreneur happens to you. And you have to either push through that kind of stuff and grow a bit of a thicker skin, because you're not going to please everyone. But those early days were hard, that getting product out there, getting people to try it in a very risky, we were high risk. I mean, having a bar in the shelf that expires, that's nothing that any retailer 7 years ago wanted to take on. So I had my work cut out for me.
Awesome. And Grant, I know you grew up in a little bit of an entrepreneurial family too, with the printing company. What were your entrepreneurial journey begin like?
Yeah, it's funny because actually I'm just listening to Chris and Cheryl's stories, and I think that I can take elements of what both of you said, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that, or something along those lines, because I think we all have kind of this common thing. And yeah, I grew up in a family that has owned businesses in the province for generations now, and it's almost like entrepreneurship by accident in some cases, because it's I don't know, I didn't ever grow up saying oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur like Chris said. That became sexy in the last 10 years, I think. But I didn't grow up thinking oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It was really just out of necessity, because I couldn't see myself working for anybody else anymore. And it was just a matter of this is just something I need to do. I've always been interested in doing things, and even as a kid, I would be I grew up in Headingley, and I would be the one walking I don't know, let's say 10 years old, and walking over to the market gardener and getting a job, and they paid me $20 a day, and I just thought that's what you do. You just go and you do things, and then you provide a service, and then people give you money for it. And so that's where it all kind of started. And then I started to realize, I grew up in our printing company. My uncle ran it at the time, and my cousin's about to take it over, and you kind of see the grind that they went through. And then my dad was in the wealth management industry, which kind of brought me into this later on. But it's it's like I said, it's entrepreneurship by accident, and I just more so got tired of seeing things not done the way that I think they could be done in the best way possible. And so if you want to go do it better, you got to go do it better. Otherwise, you're always at the mercy of somebody else, right? So that's just not something I could live with anymore.
Awesome. Well, you all have, you found a lot of success in all 3 of your businesses, but as we all know, as entrepreneurs, there's so many lessons learned along the way, and mistakes happen. Curious to know maybe what 1 or 2 more major mistakes or lessons learned, or learning experiences, as we may call them, that you encountered either earlier on or late part of your journey to date, that really kind of shaped where you got today. Any major mistakes you made, or learning experiences?
Mm-hmm. I can go. So for food products, and if anyone's in kind of looking at developing a food product, early on, I thought, my dream was that I could run my business and someone else could make the bar. So we got a co-packer in the city, and they set up an entire kitchen for us and whatever. And the deal was they'd be blending the bars and we'd be paying per piece. And this was in my brain going to be perfect, because then I could go get accounts and do the marketing and the selling and the business side. And what I quickly realized is that nobody can make the product like you do at the start, and your customers will want to see consistent quality, especially if you're selling a premium product like we do. And we lost a fortune that year because I had no bars come out of that co-packing experience. I was spending 3 days a week at the co-packers trying to get bars to be proper out of them, but we were still paying for it. It was a contract I had to follow through on. So that made me realize, though, that we needed to set up our own kitchen. I had to get my own team. I had to get in there, train everyone. And then that's when we started looking for our first commercial kitchen. So it's a light bulb moment, but we lost a ton of money that year.
Wow. Chris, Grant, any major mistakes?
For sure. HR really slapped me in the face, hiring 85 people in a year. I thought, how hard could it be to hire some people and to put them in an office, give them some candies, have some puppies come to the office every day. Like, how hard could this be? Man, it was hard. And that was definitely the thing that I was most naive about, was people and how hard it is to manage people. And it's probably the thing I spend most of my time on, even still today, is managing people. And out of all the stats, out of all my companies, the one stat that actually I'm most proud of at the moment is my current company. In 3 years, we've yet to lose a single employee. There's been a few employees that it hasn't been the right fit for them, and they've moved on, and we've helped them move on. But we've not lost someone that we've wanted to stick around. So culture is everything. We have an amazing team at the moment, and you're willing to stay at 3 a.m. at the office with your team because it's like a good group of people. So yeah, people, HR, culture, that is hard. That's hard. That's tough stuff.
Yeah,
I would relate to
that.
that. I having gone through 3 chefs before we even started or opened my restaurant, figuring out how to deal with people and lead people, that's a challenge. Absolutely. Sorry, Grant, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. I would just say I'd echo that. I mean, I think I just actually read this book last year called Traction. I don't know if anybody else has read that, but it's basically the principle is that you have the right people in the right seats, and you can spend a lot of time. If you spend more time hiring up front, it saves you a lot of time later on. Like, I get the old adage, you hire slow and fire fast. Like, if somebody's not right, then they shouldn't be at your company. But that's something that's hard to learn. Like, it's not easy. And like Chris is saying, it's like, yeah, I thought it'd be easy too, like hiring people and just fill the seats, get people in. But I've gone through that experience where we had people, and it's really hot. It's really hard to get rid of somebody that's mediocre at their position. Like, if they're bad, it's easy to get rid of them because it's a glaring. But mediocre, it's like, yeah, I can live with that. And you keep living with it, but it's preventing your company from being exceptional. And that's a hard lesson that I've learned in the last few years, even, is just that, you got to spend more time hiring, and you don't want anybody that's coming in that's not going to fit well with your culture. The other one, like my main one though, was like mentorship. And because again, I'm a headstrong guy, and the whole premise behind my business is doing things better than what other people are doing. So I kind of went in thinking that, I can just do it better. And I stopped probably listening a little bit in the first couple of years. And that was a mistake. I'm fortunate because I have a couple of really good mentors that are still my mentors today that have helped me out along the way. But I was a little bit closed-minded early on, and that slowed my business down. I'd probably be 2 or 3 years ahead of where I am today if it wasn't for that. And so I think it's really important to always be open-minded to other people's ideas inside your organization and outside.
Absolutely. On that note of HR and hiring people, Ravdeep put a comment in the chat here about how much or how and when to initially hire people. So I think further to that, I'll ask, when did you make those initial hires, and how did you know that it was the right time to start expanding your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's so many different angles you can take to that question. So kind of how we were approaching with the Snapchat filter company was, As soon as we started to work, 15, 16, 17 hours a day, we kind of thought that was a point to maybe bring in another hand to maybe reduce some hours, and that hours then just kept creeping up. So we were only hiring when it was basically going to destroy us because we don't have enough hands on deck. It wasn't this idea that let's just get some more people in so that everyone can go home earlier on a Friday. It's holy crap, everyone's still here at 4 a.m. Let's go find someone else to help us, and maybe next week will be better. So we were always pushing that envelope of how far can you go. But on the flip side to that, you have to make sure, especially as the person running or steering the ship, that you don't burn out your team. So you have to. So right now with my software developers, I don't let them do more than 45, 50 hours a week. They would love to do more, but I just know when you're going through logic problems and function problems, you get burnt out after 8, 9 hours a day. So time management, also of understanding how much your employees can work, is also kind of part of that features, or that I guess that thought process. But that's kind of an extreme measure for hiring.
I came across this stat yesterday internally, actually. Then one of my, I call her my chief of staff. I don't know if that's her official title yet, but anyway, she said to me that, like, we can push to 110%, 115% of capacity, but at 120% is where we have to draw the line. And so I asked her how we're sitting today, and she said we're at about 110 right now. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty good measure. I'm glad she's keeping track of it, but because I agree, like, I think, like, yeah, you can push to a certain level, but beyond that, you're going in the wrong direction, obviously.
And Cheryl, what did those initial, I know you maybe started hiring after that co-packer experience, but what was your biggest thought process in terms of those initial hires?
Well, for us, we're still, we're a small business, but we do, I always say that my team of 5 does the work of like 100 because they're just so busy all the time. But I did a lot of the stuff myself for the longest period of time that I could, because I was reinvesting every single penny into the company. We remain a debt-free company, and I want to stay that way as long as I possibly can. I own 100% of my company, and I just really was committed to learning every aspect of the business, from the sales to the product to the marketing to the packaging, everything. And then I was doing my own books, obviously, since I'm a CPA, but until I didn't want to no longer make all the product. And I thought, well, if something happens, I need to take holidays or I get sick, then there has to be someone along the way. So we have slowly built the team, and depending on the product, for us, it's not an easy training period. I mean, the blender is the most important job in our kitchen. So it's not a job that we just hire and then go for it. So we've kind of added to the team as we've gotten busier. But I was talking to an entrepreneur that had started a business, and she was maybe like a month in, and she'd hired a personal assistant for herself. And I'm like, why? Why are you spending money on that? You have to go do all that stuff, right? Like, there are certain things that I feel if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to kind of grind it out, be in the trenches for a bit, spend a lot of time and learn. And then you'll know intuitively when it's no longer right for you to kind of do those jobs. I fired myself from every position at Cranked in October 2019 in terms of production. So I literally do the business now, and that hired a sales manager. There are these key moments. I was on the verge of a breakdown in terms of so busy, we couldn't keep up with orders. There's very clear signs, I feel, when you need to add to your team.
Awesome. Love that. On that note of HR, I'd love to get, especially now, mental health is such an important topic of conversation with entrepreneurs and with everyone. Any comments, tips, pieces of advice on how you manage that work-life balance within all 3 of your lives while building a company and staying healthy mentally and physically?
I just think, like, so yeah, balance is, like, I don't know if it's an illusion, but, like, like, balance is, like, everybody has subjective balance, in my opinion. Like, so I mean, I think what you got to do is do what makes you happy. But, the most important part of it, though, is being in the moment as much as possible. Like, I have a 6-month-old daughter at home. I have a wife that wants to make sure that I'm, as much as I do, wants to make sure I'm a part of her life, and so on and so forth. And so I think the most important thing is being in the moment. Like when I'm here at Endeavor, I'm at Endeavor. You know, this is like I'm compartmentalizing that part of my life. But when I'm home, you know, and I'm putting the phone away and I'm doing that as much as possible. She'd laugh if like hearing me say that, because she knows the phone does come out still at home. But as much as possible, I'm in the moment, and you know, and I think that's added a lot to my mental health. Exercise is super important, and eating right, as Cheryl I'm sure would be recommending, is those are big things as well. And I think you have to have those in your routine. But for me, it was just like, you know, making sure that everything was compartmentalized as much as possible. But, you know, and when you have staff, like what I've also realized is you have to make sure that they're doing those things too, as much as you can. And especially during the pandemic, that's been the challenge, because people aren't traveling, so they're not booking their holidays. And so, so that's something that we're focusing in on right now, is making sure that they're taking some time off as well.
Yeah, that's balance is, to be totally frank, like I have no balance at all. I haven't had balance for about 10 years now. For fun, a few years ago, I was like, I should track how many hours I work a week, and it was like 130. So that's an example of like an extreme case of like sleeping 4 hours a day and every other second you're working. But I think what Grant said is like the absolute like key to that is you got to do what makes you happy. So me working 20 hours a day is what I call like pure happiness, and I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. You know, I've skipped Coachella. I've skipped all those fun things when you're in the early 20s. And I was working a lot. But I wouldn't trade that. If I were to go back and do it again, I would do the exact same thing. But I think it's really important to understand that, you know, my work schedule, I often advise to not do what I do, because one, it's probably not healthy. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to figure out where you want to get to. And if you're only working 40 hours a week, you probably won't be able to get as far as that person working 130. So it really comes down to, yes, what makes you happy? And do you have the supportive people in your back pocket that will, you know, be there with you? There were friends that I just didn't talk to for 2 or 3 years. And then I came with the other side, and they were still there. They're still waiting for me, and they understood what I was doing. The fact that I couldn't go to the club with them on a Saturday night wasn't because I didn't want to be with them. It's because I'm busy. So you have friends that understand that. You have families and partners that understand that, and then you have ones that don't. And you really sort of have to figure out what makes you happy at the end of the day, and what you're willing to sacrifice, whether that's Netflix or whatever it might be. It's a personal choice. And I do recommend that what I did and what I do is not the right way by any means, but it's what I do. I don't have any balance whatsoever.
Cheryl, any comments on that from your perspective?
For mental health is tricky for me. I've struggled with it most of my adult life. So, and entrepreneurship's pretty lonely paycheck. So there's missed opportunities to spend money like other people who are, you know, in a safe job. There's no benefits half the time. So there's no pension. So there's all these other things behind the scenes that also weigh on it. And as you're growing, customer service is by far our number one focus all the time. And that stuff can weigh heavy on you as well. You want your customers to be happy. And then if your home life, obviously for me with 3 kids, and my husband also owns a company, we're just always kind of in it. So anxiety, all those things creep up really quickly for me. And luckily having a pretty good support system where everyone kind of notices if mom's having a bit of a spiral. And my team as well, I've hired people on the team who are very good at, I throw out the idea and they run with it to kind of release some of those pressures as well. But just talking about it, I'm always very open about mental health, and being an entrepreneur is by far one of the harder aspects of it, because it does feel quite isolated at times. There's not a lot of people doing it, or you're stuck working a ton. Like Grant said, you're working a lot of hours and a lot of times by yourself.
For sure. Totally. I'm just checking the Q&A in the chat here. We have a couple questions in here, so I'm going to head to those. First one's from Kamar, asking about how and where he should be networking. His partner and he are building a startup for a mobile app, and would love maybe some tips or advice on networking and your thoughts on networking and maybe your networking journey from a mentorship perspective.
Yeah, good question. Winnipeg's a fun city because you can really message anyone in the city and probably get a response from them, whether you find them on LinkedIn, go through Instagram, whatever it might be. Winnipeg's, at least I found, you know, the founders of big companies, whatever it might be, they're pretty actually open to responding. And so, yeah, if there's someone you're, you know, interested to reach out to, just send them a message, guess their email address. It's typically for founders like first name at company's URL. So chris@pluto.ventures. It's very simple to find email addresses. There's also some really good programs in the city that both, you know, Joshua and Lindsay could provide a whole extensive list of resources of different companies that help you connect to angel investors. But yeah, that's sort of my 2 cents on that.
Grant, any thoughts, comments on Kamar's question here in the chat about networking and networking opportunities in the community, and maybe some feedback on your experience with, I know you talked about mentorship earlier.
Yeah, you know, Winnipeg's a really great place for networking, in my opinion. Like, I think that there's a lot of people here that are interested in helping other people out, which is somewhat unique, and something that, you know, I love about our city is that there's genuinely a lot of people that are interested in helping each other out. And so, you know, I think that the biggest thing you can do is, you know, I've done this ever since I was a kid. I always look up to find people that I look up to and might want to emulate, and not necessarily exactly what they do, but you know, people that I respect, and then I've just sought those people out. And I think that, you know, a lot of people hesitate to do that because they think that they're going to waste their time and they're scared to pick up the phone. Like, I always joke that the phone becomes like Thor's hammer and you can't pick it up, you know, and because it's just too heavy. The reality is, like, you can pick it up, and people are always willing to talk, or for the most part, are always willing to talk and share their experiences. And so, I would just suggest that the best thing you can do is find people that you respect and you think you can learn from, and then reach out to them, offer to buy them a coffee sometime. Like, man, like, especially now, I'm itching to go for coffees with people. Like, once things like can open up, and once I get my jab, hopefully in the next couple of months or whatever, I'll be interested in going for coffees. And so I think that's the best thing you can do. Offer somebody to buy a coffee, and then take them out and pick their brains. That's on the mentorship side. On the networking side, just get out there and do as much as you can. Like, go, but do things that you enjoy doing. Like, do, like, I call it passion prospecting. Like, if you find things that you can do in the city, and, like, you know, I used to go to like meetup groups quite a bit, because I'd find, like, you know, there's like, this is how I met a group of people who are interested in electric vehicles, because there was a Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association. And I just kind of went to the university one day, showed up, and met a bunch of really great people, and you know, some of which I still talk to today. You know, so there's a lot of great resources, both offered by like Stu Clark or the Jasper, or like just out there, you know. And so I would encourage people to do things that they like to do, and you'll meet people like you, and you can share experiences that way.
Awesome. Definitely the Young Associates too is a great opportunity locally here for young entrepreneurs and young professionals that I highly encourage everyone to attend. Cheryl, there's a question in the chat here more geared towards you in terms of standards about an early stage food industry product. Any tips, tricks, pieces of advice for early stage food entrepreneurs in the industry?
Well, you do not want to be making it out of your home. That's illegal. So we see that a lot. And I know it's hard. That's where I started. But once you get customers that are not your friends and family, you really need to get commercial kitchen space. There's lots you can find. If you need ideas of where to rent one, just message us on Cranked Energy. I check all my messages. I can set you up with some great rental spaces. We rented one for 2 years. It's not that expensive. And it just, you want to start your relationship in the food industry with the right inspections happening, with the right health inspector relationships happening. You want to make sure your customers are eating product that is coming out of a commercial kitchen. And then you want to visit the food development center and really utilize them for testing your product. Our initial bar was tested for microbiology, moisture level testing, all that stuff to make sure we have shelf life. We have all the details, because people are going to want to know how long the product will last, and you want to know that it's safe, because there's a lot of regulations with a food product. And so you want a really good relationship with the food development center. And getting into retailers, they're all going to be asking for that. What's your shelf life? You know, all those questions. And you want to have answers for those. So yeah, the food market's tricky. And liability insurance, get some liability insurance. Once you've got some retailers, you just want to cover your butt. Most getting into retailers, they require at least 5 million of liability insurance in case someone eats your product and gets sick. They don't want to be sued. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm always available for questions. Just don't ask me for the recipe. I still get asked for the recipe. It's not happening ever. But message on Cranked Energy, and I can definitely guide you into, I've got a lot of connections in the food industry.
Awesome. Thanks, Cheryl. Question in the Q&A from Andrew, and we'll throw this out to all three of you. Do you have advice on managing the responsibilities of a small startup team of founders? How do you avoid micromanaging everyone's roles, especially when there's pressure to get an MVP or product developed? Anyone want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I sort of have a philosophy that everyone I hire is smarter than myself. So I don't want to micromanage them, because I want them to do what I hire them to do. So it's definitely something as a founder and as an owner, you know, yes, it is your baby. You did start it, and you sort of have this weird attachment to it sometimes, but you have to definitely be able to, you know, separate that emotional connection to your business and figure out from a business perspective, what's the best, you know, decision to move the business forward. And that's something that's tough. That's hard. You hear these companies that are 40, 50, 60 years old, and the owner is still, you know, in the weeds, and they haven't been able to detach themselves from that. So something that really helps is when you hire really smart people, you see what they can do. You give them the flexibility, the freedom, the bandwidth for them to do their magic. And you realize that they're probably better than what you could do. And so that actually makes the detachment a little bit easier. And that's what I found. And by no means is it easy, but it definitely allows your business to grow much, much, much quicker if you can put the right people into the right spots.
Yeah, I would echo that, because, like, I mean, I guess the question, if you think about like the 30,000 foot view and who you want to be and what you want your company to be, the decision like gets a lot easier, but it doesn't mean that the actions are that much easier as well. Like, I guess the question is like, do you want to be in the orchestra, or do you want to be the conductor? And if you want to be the one who directs the orchestra, then you've got to be the director of the orchestra. You can't be like the one playing the instruments all the time, you know? And so, yeah, that can be hard. Especially, like, again, I think we had this tendency, it's probably this natural thing that entrepreneurs have. It's like, oh, the reason we started this because we thought we could do something better than what's out there. And so we think that maybe we're the only ones that can do it. But at some point that has and it happens quickly. And Cheryl, you were talking about, like, you know, you fired yourself from all the positions on the production line, basically. At some point you have to do that. Otherwise your business is only gonna be limited by the number of hours that you have in a day. And if you ever want to get exponential, you have to trust other people to carry on the work. And so it's not an easy thing to do, but I think if you keep your eye on the bigger picture, and you realize that you're the bottleneck, your business can't move forward unless you make some changes, you know. And learning to say no is really important. That's one that I always struggle with. I still take way more meetings than I should, or I still do like way more things than I should do because somebody asked me to do. And I just have this natural tendency that I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, so I'm learning to say no a lot more, and I have to do more of it. And I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with as well.
Cheryl, any comment on that one?
Yeah, I mean, when I fired myself, I'm over myself entire process, because I was trying to play the instruments and direct and conduct and do all that stuff, and it led to a nervous breakdown. But anyways, I'm just reading one of the questions saying, how do you hire without any money? So what I did, and everyone's different, obviously, I hired my sales director, and she's 100% commission. and she's 100% commission on paid accounts. So she can do the sale. She's got to go get the business accounts. We have a structure set up for new business versus recurring business. But she's got to go manage those accounts. It's not a one-time sale. She's got to treat them well. She's got to visit them. She's got to restock them, and they got to pay their bill. So that's the other part of it. And then she gets paid. So the money's come in. I'm willing to take a bit of the margin hit on that because I can't service 100 retailers in one province, let alone manage it across Canada. But it didn't require a ton of money, right? And we were ready for it. So that's kind of, and then hiring with no money. I mean, you just have to do the work yourself at first, plain and simple, right? And test your product, get it out there, make sure you know your costs, your margins, make sure you're making money. First of all, and then start building your team properly, slowly.
Awesome. On that note, also another question in the Q&A from Matthew, and we'll start with you, Cheryl, on this one. How do you manage to recruit your first 100 customers? Do you remember that initial first customer and your initial first few, and how you scaled? How did you manage to grow from first 100 to the 10,000?
Oh God. Well, first retailer was the Green Carrot, Abhi Khan. I cornered him at a golf tournament and asked him to try the product, and he ignored me. We're close friends now, but he ignored me. And then 3 phone calls later and 6 months in between, he took a meeting. So you got to pick up the phone. I agree. You got to, and we're talking back pre-Instagram here, right? There wasn't an ability to direct message, right? There wasn't that kind of, I don't know, that wall that goes up where I had to actually go find him and drop bars off. And so he was our first one, and he took a chance, and I said he wouldn't be disappointed, and he's done very well. COVID for us was an opportunity to expand our online. We were pretty much 90% wholesale as of last March, and we pivoted, created a new bar. We came up with the mini egg bar in March and exploded it online, offered free delivery. I figured we could take the hit on the margin, keep a courier company in business locally, and it carried us the entire COVID, just our e-commerce. So that was already set up. We invested some money in our website pre-COVID to make sure that we were ready for e-commerce. So that was a new thing. We saw an opportunity to deliver direct to people's houses while the retailers were closed. And it's still to this day a great avenue because not everyone wants to venture out into stores. So we've become a bit lazy in terms of our shopping habits. It's like click, which is great for us, right? I mean, if you can get product to someone's door fast and offer free shipping at some point, then you'll see sales come in.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Grant, Chris, thoughts on your first few customers and how you grew them?
Yeah, I think Cheryl sort of summed it up. The first 100 customers, you have to be very scrappy and creative. And so just to give you kind of a fun backstory for the first 100 customers for Snapchat filters, I found this one Reddit forum online. It was the only place on the internet talking about these new Snapchat filters back in 2016. And I realized, I understand sort of how the Reddit algorithm works. So I realized I had to make more sort of traffic and engagement on this forum. So I built 5 different Reddit accounts. And I'd set up a system that whenever someone else would comment on this forum, I would go in with my 5 different accounts, and I would create this like false chatter to sort of get more interaction on the page, and then lead them eventually to my website. And so the first 100 customers, they're doing things that aren't scalable. You know, Cheryl can't run to every single person in the city and corner them on a golf course and get them to test their bar. But what you sort of hope is once you get past the first, 1, 2, 300 customers, you then start to get some traction. You can then start to do maybe some more traditional, quote unquote, traditional marketing tactics, whether that's Facebook ads or Instagram ads. But those first 100 customers, you have to realize they are not looking for your product because they have no idea your product or service even exists. So you have to go out there and put it basically in their face, and you hope that you're providing a good enough product or service that either then they tell their friends or there's some sort of network effect. But the first 100 customers, I think that's where true creativity of an entrepreneur shows through. Because if you really want to get the 100 customers, you will stand on the side of the street and talk to 100 people by yourself if you have to.
Yeah, I would echo from both of you again, because I think it's like, yeah, the first 100, it's a lot of just like, it's the game of inches, and what are you willing to do to gain those inches? And for me, it was a lot of, again, just picking up the phone and like, as again, we're in traditional industries, if you will, and not necessarily like creating new industries, but we're in there trying to improve existing. And so yeah, like the people know what our industry does, but we're in a branding play more than anything. We're trying to establish that brand. Now, my hope is that gets a lot easier as the Endeavor brand gets out there and people start to recognize it. But it's still, you got to be scrappy, and I love that story, Cheryl, about you cornering Avi Khan, because I think that's what so many people are just, again, afraid to do. But at the end of the day, that's what you got to do. I mean, how bad do you want it? And if you want it bad enough, you're willing to do those things. And if you start a business, like, the cash flow quickly reminds you of what you need to do to get those things. You'll find out what you need to do, and then it's a matter of like, are you willing to do it or not? That's the first 100, and then to get to like the 10,000 mark or more, you have to, in my opinion, you really have to pay attention to processes and systems. Like, I'm a very process driven person, in our business anyway. Like, I like automation. I like having like software that runs everything as much as possible, so that I can click a button and then the rest of like my team is automatically given tasks to take care of certain things, So I think that you have to pay attention to processes and systems, and that's how you, again, multiply your hours. It's just a must, especially in the world today. Like, if you're not focusing in on what technology can do and how it can help you to run your business, like, I think your lunch is going to be eaten by other companies, frankly, and especially bigger companies. Like, again, I look at like Apple and Amazon and Disney, and they don't compete directly in my business, any of my businesses really today, but I always have this in the back of my head that one day they probably will, and whether they're actually directly competing or not, they've already changed the way that people consume services or goods or whatever. They've already changed that, and so they are setting the bar for what the experience is, like the desired experience is, the click of the button, like that type of thing. And so we have to be mindful of that in our business as well. And the only way to do that, create better experiences, you have to have technology to help you manage it.
Awesome. Those are all really great answers. Chris, a few, and as I see you commented here too, a few questions in the chat purely about tech co-founders and hiring tech employees. Any comments, thoughts on how to go about hiring those if you're maybe not a tech person and want to start a tech business, how to go about finding those tech co-founders or employees?
Yeah, building a tech company, you definitely need that domain knowledge right from day one. So there's really only two options. Either you're not a technical founder and you go find a technical founder to start the business with you, or you teach yourself. So I went down path 2. I am self-taught on the software side. And once again, kind of the extreme measure of doing something like this, for one of my companies, I had only hired back-end software developers because I wanted to teach myself the front-end side. And so what I did was, I basically sat in my room for 2 months. I had 3 screens. One screen, I started season 1, episode 1 of How I Met Your Mother. And then the other 2 screens, one was just Stack Overflow in Google, and the third screen was just me coding. And basically I came out 2 months later. The ending of the show sucked, but I had taught myself how to code. And I was sort of forced in this sort of scenario where I had developers working during the day, and they were waiting on me to get my stuff done as well. So I was really kind of, you sort of, when you're trying to self-learn or something, it can drag on for 6, 12, 18, 24 months. You can say, I'm going to start learning to code today. I'll be year 2024 and you'll still be in that process. So I really wanted something that would push me to get through that process. And that was sort of my thought. And I was too late to the stage. I believe a true software developer really actually has to begin when they are 10, 12, 13 years old. There's just so much to learn. If you're 24, you're never going to catch up to the young guns. But what I did realize was I wanted to build tech companies. And as Grant sort of talked about, technology is such a big component of any company. I wanted to understand the insides and the outsides of it. So I had to teach myself enough to understand and to talk to my developers and to hire developers. And I still, after this call, I'm going to the office. I'm going to be sitting with my developers all afternoon. But going back to my original point, I hire proper software developers to do their job, but I can still interact. I understand the business side, the economic side, and the tech side, and I can put it together. But you really have to understand I think it's a mistake if you're trying to start a tech company and you don't understand software development. It's just not. It's going to be an uphill battle, and starting a company is already so hard. You're already behind the 8 ball when you start. So, and then I've been noticing some other comments about finding developers. The best way really is finding, if you have a friend that's a software developer, they are in that community. They went to school with 50, 100 other software developers. Just ask them, just say, hey, do you have any friends looking for a new job? The other thing you can do, go on LinkedIn, search software developers in the city, look at their profiles, see who you like, send them a DM. There's so many ways to find these people. You just have to be willing to put the work in to get to that point.
Awesome. Love that. Just being conscious of time. We only have a few more minutes left. So if there are any final last questions from the attendees, feel free to pop them in the Q&A. I do have 2 final questions that I do want to ask all of you. And the first one being, if you had 1 or 2 final pieces of advice to youth entrepreneurs and those that are beginning their own entrepreneurial journey, what would your top piece of advice be? Whoever wants to start can go first.
I think one of the first things is you don't have to build a $1 billion tech company to be a successful entrepreneur. I think that's like a misconception right off the bat. You can build, a lawn care company that does, X amount of money, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in the summer. That's a huge success. So don't let the revenue metric define success. And then don't let other numbers, don't let staff count define success. Figure out what is your success mark and go by that. And understand that it's going to be so hard that it will be the hardest thing you do. Building a company, building whether it's a tech company, a food company, or a financial business, it will be the hardest thing you do. So just understand you're going to have to give things up, and it's okay if you don't want to be an entrepreneur. That's actually, honestly, preferable. This is not a life that I try to push people into. I actually try to deter people going into it. Because it's tough. It's really, really tough, and it's not for everyone. And the sooner you realize that, the better for you. And it's okay being the second in command, third in command. We talk about responsibilities, way less responsibilities, and same upside. So I think just understanding where you fit in that company is really important.
Yeah, the number 10 person at Google did just fine, I think. So
Exactly.
I think that's such good advice, Chris, actually, because it is a tough life. It's definitely not for everybody. And but we all, everybody who's a founder needs good lieutenants as well. And you can be a part of the story, and a big part of the story, maybe even the biggest in the end. But I would just say you also want to enjoy the process though too. We too often get in this stuck where we're looking at the end. And yeah, I think if anybody's thinking about the $1 billion valuation at the end or something like that, I don't know. I just think you're in it for the wrong reasons, to be honest with you. I just don't think you're ever going to get there. Nobody starts Apple or Google thinking that, I wanted to be a billionaire. They started it because they had passion and they thought they could do something amazing, and sometimes it even just falls into their laps. But none of those people that everybody looks up to thinks about I'm going to be a billionaire one day. I think if you're doing that, you're in it for the wrong reasons altogether. Just to go out, try to do something good for the world. I personally believe that, if you have a good solution, that you should use it to help improve people's lives. That's something that I try to do every day. And if you have that mindset, then that's all you need to do. And to Chris's point, whether you ever reach $1 million valuation, $1 billion, whatever, as long as you're doing good work on a daily basis, that's what counts. And enjoy it. Enjoy the process. Enjoy it. And read. Read as many books as you can. It's hard, especially when you're in the weeds of everything. But I try to adopt this lifelong learning strategy where I try to diversify it too, and learn about things I don't know, like I said, climate change and things like that. I'm very interested in trying to learn about how all that stuff works. And so I don't know, diversify your knowledge.
Awesome. Cheryl?
For me, I just want everyone to understand that, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. I call it noise. There's a lot of noise on social media now, launching of companies, a lot of copycat stuff going on. don't worry about that stuff. Really understand the values you have as an entrepreneur and you're instilling in your company, and go forward with that. I think customers now are savvy. They see through in genuine relationships and all the BS that's out there. They want true connection. They want to invest their money in companies with purpose. They don't want to see that you're taking expensive trips all the time. They want, like, you can, I'm not saying you can't, but they want to know that this company is investing into their community. We have a very solid community relationship and constantly pushing to do more within our community. And it does, in the end, build our brand, and it does translate into sales because they want to understand that their money is going towards that as well. So just do you. Stay very laser focused on your journey and your product and your relationship building, and ignore the noise.
Awesome. Love that. Those are all three great pieces of advice. And thank you so much for sharing. My final more so it's more of a rapid fire question for the three of you is that if you were to write a book about your entrepreneurial journey, what would you name it? What would the title be?
Broken.
Oh my God.
That's not bad. I might use
No
that.
one's ever asked me that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I've never had that or question.
It's a thinker.
It is, it's good.
Maybe something like a little obsessive or a little too obsessive or something like that.
Love it.
Mine would probably be like, they said it was risky, because that's all I ever heard. They said
Yeah,
it was
that's
risky.
Broken. They said it was risky, and obsessed. Love it. Those are three great titles. Awesome. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Chris, Cheryl, Grant, for taking your time and being with us here today. Really appreciated it. You're all three inspiring local entrepreneurs that any student is grateful to look up to. And so thank you so much for all you do in the community and for being with us here today. And congratulations on all your success and the many more to come. So thanks so much for joining us, and thanks to all you attendees joining us as well, and for all your great questions. Keep in touch. Reminder, next webinar comes April 7th, which is our legal fundamentals. And so looking forward to hoping or seeing all of you there as well. So take care, enjoy the day, and we'll talk later.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Lindsay.